I'm R.L. Stein. In a few minutes, you're going to see one of my favorite stories come alive. What's so scary about that? You'll see. Viewers beware. You're in for a scare.
Welcome to Ghoul Radio Episode 2. I'm your host, Rob Cortez. We're just a few days away from my favorite holiday, Halloween. On this episode, I feature my first guest, Laredo's own Chris James. In our last episode, although we didn't name him, I read several of his stories from one of his books, titled Paranormal Laredo. I asked Chris James on his origins, the stories he's collected by numerous strangers, and his overall thoughts on the paranormal. We'll have more on that interview in just a bit. But first, here's a story from his book titled Paranormal Laredo. So sit tight, relax, and let's see if you can make it to the end of this episode. In Laredo, there are two school districts, Laredo Independent School District and United Independent School District. There are also many private schools, along with several Catholic schools. In one school, near Bridge 2, at the end of Interstate 35, people see a nun walking along the hallway on the second floor. She walks to the doors to the library and enters without bothering to open the doors first. The building is old, but the library was a new addition put in after the nuns were no longer working at the school. Still, the spirit of the nun seems to be looking for something in the library. Several teachers and a few students have seen the nun in the second floor hallway. The janitor has also witnessed this spirit walking the corridors of the school. The image has been caught on tape as a glowing orb moving along the hall and vanishing into the doors. The school was opened in 1950. It was one of a number of schools built through the efforts of Cardinal McIntyre. At first, the school had no one to run it until the Sisters of Columbine said they would come to Laredo and staff the school. The nuns continued working at the school until the 1990s. So, I went to the school. You know what? Let me rephrase that. I actually graduated from the school, and I've never seen shit! But if any of you have ever been to the school, and if you've ever noticed her, please let us know on Ghoul Radio. And now, Chris James. I'm Rob Cortez. My podcast is called Ghoul Radio. Hopefully you've already checked that out. My first question was, ever since you started this whole project, were you influenced as a kid?
Absolutely. When I was young, I used to watch a TV show called Coal Shack, The Night Stalker. And it was this guy, Darren McGavin. He was the head star, and he was also the producer. And he had a few other jobs that he wasn't getting paid for. But each week they would have him going up against a creature, a villain, a monster. He had a vampire. He had a guy that was they called him the Night Strangler. He extract blood from women and use it to elongate his own life. And it was real popular. Chris Carter started out watching the X-Files. started out
Oh,
watching The
the
Night
films,
Stalker,
yes.
and it kind of inspired him to make the TV show. And if you watch the remake of the X-Files when they tried to rerun it, and they had, I can't think of the guy's name. He was dressed up in a white seersucker suit. He had a
Okay.
straw hat and a radio and a recorder and a camera. Dars, the guy that he was on Jumanji. Welcome to Jumanji. That guy.
Oh, okay.
Well, he
Oh,
was dressed up to look like Kolchak
oh,
as
okay.
a nod to him because that was how X Files got started, and that was kind of how I got started.
There you go.
1973,
Origins
I
of
think.
Chris James. Following up that question, what has been your most unforgettable experience?
Right here in Laredo, and it happened, I'm guessing, 89 or 90. I had just gotten into the Border Patrol,
Okay.
and they didn't have enough journeymen, experienced agents to keep a leash on us. And so
Yeah.
what they would do is they'd put two trainees in a vehicle and they'd tell us, stay out of trouble, try to do your job.
Mm-hmm.
But the important thing was stay out of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So they sent two of us downriver. It was a midnight shift. And we were driving on 83 South and we saw a bonfire up on a hill. It's not
Okay.
McAllister Hill, but kind of next door to it.
Okay.
This was outside of the city. It's probably in town now. And so we thought, well, let's check it out. Can't get in any trouble looking at a bonfire. So we drove down this road, a complete pitch black. The only light was the bonfire. And we turned all the lights out in the vehicle. We come around a corner, and here is 15 to 20 people. They're wearing full-length brown robes with the hoods up.
Oh,
They got
cool.
their hands up like this, and they're standing around a bonfire.
Yeah. Wow.
The first thing I thought about was a movie I had seen many years ago called Race with the Devil. Peter Fonda, Warren Oates, these two guys. Well, it's four people. They drive up on a group of Satanists, and then they're chased throughout the entire movie, and it does not have a happy ending.
Okay.
And I'm looking at this group of people doing some ritual. I don't see any dead bodies. My partner starts yelling and screaming. I think he may have seen the same movie. He suggested it'd be a good idea we got out of there, so we did. We spent the rest of the night just driving back and forth trying to figure out what should we do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we do have freedom of religion. It doesn't say who you have to worship.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
We decided we just wouldn't tell anybody until I had 20 years in, and then I told Art Bell. I called in on his show and told him all about it. And the next thing I know, one thing led to another, and well, I started writing books. Arturo Castro from La Noche es Tuya decided he wanted to interview me, and then he decided I should do a podcast. And the next thing I know, I'm doing strange things every week since 1916. After being on with Art Bell, all the agents listened to Art Bell. I mean, that's like
yeah. Mm-hmm.
that's what you did back then. Several, 4 or 5 different agents came up to me and said something similar had happened to them. They'd driven up on a group of people, long brown robes, middle of nowhere with a bonfire. Now these guys are barefoot.
Okay.
Who walks in Texas, the Laredo area, barefoot?
Yes.
And there were no cars around, which meant these guys had to walk from somewhere. I still think about it all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. Guys like Aleister Crowley and Anton LaVey, they used to do that sort of thing all the time.
Mm-hmm. The Church of Satan.
Yes. And it kind of makes me wonder, like, because I hear some really bad things out of Hollywood sometimes. I wonder how much potential or probable damage could be done by doing something like that. This is the kind of thing I think about
Yeah. No,
on
I'm pretty
occasion.
sure they have to sign some sort of forms or
Well,
just in case.
it's not that so much. It's like there,
The spiritual part of it,
yeah,
like what if they go home and something's chasing them, right?
yes.
Yeah.
The Exorcist all got started because some kid was using a Ouija board to talk to his aunt.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and you know what happened to all those people who want to go see it?
yeah, yeah.
They all ran out and
I
threw up. And
I laughed
did you go see that movie growing up?
at the theater, yes, and I laughed through a lot of it. But then I was a weird kid. Like I said, I watched Shack every week. I read books about vampires and werewolves when everybody else was reading
Nice.
adventure. So,
That's so
mm,
cool. That's so cool, Chris James. Another question. You've always been interested in the paranormal ever since you were
mhm.
a little kid. Have you ever joined paranormal investigation like with ghost hunters?
Laredo Paranormal Research Society. I'm a member of that. Uh, I'm their historian, their ambassador, things like that. And once in a while, I actually go on investigations, but I'm physically, yeah, I've got a few aches and pains that keep me
Yeah.
from doing a whole lot. We were investigating the Laredo College, and
Okay.
we were in the Arechiga Hall, and most of the activity there is up in the attic. So it's up and down those stairs. And about the
Okay.
third trip up, I'm like, I'll wait down here for y'all. It just
Yeah. I already know what happens.
mm. That's an interesting building there, just before World War One.
Oh, okay. So
It's not
1900s for
that
sure.
old. The original fort is still out there, kind of. It's just a pile of dirt over behind that elementary school.
Oh, wow.
You can't see it if you're standing on the ground looking, but if you look at it from a satellite, you can see the imprint where it used to set, and it was just dirt piled up. The original Fort McIntosh, it was a pile of
Is
dirt,
long gone.
literally.
Oh,
Now
wow.
there weren't enough rocks. They didn't have any wood. The soldiers stayed in tents. They didn't have any barracks,
Oh,
and it was
wow.
considered the worst place to be in the military when the wind would blow from the north. From the north, the fort would go to Mexico, and then
Oh,
they'd have to
wow.
rebuild it. Yeah, all the dirt would just
Yeah,
blow
all the
away.
dirt into the river.
Uh, Eventually, they built the part of the fort that everybody's familiar with, all those buildings. But that was around World War One, the lead up there.
Okay.
And I wrote a book called Fort McIntosh and the
Yeah.
Paranormal.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I haven't been able to pick it up, but I did pick up your book of with the little girl in the front.
Paranormal Laredo.
Yeah, there you go. That one. Pretty much going through it. I've also went ahead and used some of the
Yeah,
stories I mentioned you
I I listened to
on Bird
your
Radio.
I listened to your other show.
It sounded really, I mean, it made everything a little creepier, but I enjoyed the majority of those stories. I mean, I have
Yeah.
so many other stories I have to read.
There are so many reports of that girl. It makes me wonder what the heck is going on.
Have you heard anything recently?
The most recent story was it wasn't a long one. It was just a couple of sentences. A guy was, I think they said they lived up on the north side of Loop 20, one of the new neighborhoods. He jumped in his car to go somewhere, and he glances up in the rearview mirror, and the little girl is sitting in the back seat of his car.
Whoa.
He spun around and he looked in the back seat. There was nobody there, but he threw it in park, jumped out the door, and ran back inside. It kind of freaked him out a bit. And also, a woman in the Alexander neighborhood was walking in the house, her and her daughter. They
Okay.
walk in the house, and down the hallway, right in front of them, was the little girl standing there. And the daughter was just like, "Oh, who's that?" And the mother's,
Yeah.
"I don't know, don't go near it." And then the girl disappeared.
Do you believe it's a little girl's spirit,
Nope.
embodied her?
why would a small child be trapped here on this plane of existence? When a child dies, they're going to move on. It's
Okay.
almost like not so much it's a given thing, they've got no reason to
Yeah, they
stay.
have no reason to stay. Mhm.
What would take on the appearance of a little girl? You see it, you're not thinking, oh my God, it's a ghost of a little girl. You're thinking, how can I help this kid? What can I
Yeah.
do? What does she need? And if you offer your help, what could possibly go wrong? It's kind of like I
Yeah.
hear these stories from people. They say they contact a spirit through a Ouija board, and the spirit tells them this and it tells them that. And it's been super wow helpful. And it's giving them all kinds of information. Then
Mhm.
it says, hey, I've been dead a long time. It sure would be nice to
Live
sit down
again.
and have a meal or go dancing. And would it be okay if I were to borrow your body? In other
Well,
words,
yeah.
possess you?
Hmm. Yeah, you're
That,
you're after it getting, to know you for a while, maybe
yeah,
you end up being vulnerable to it. And,
yes.
and
It breaks down your inhibitions. Hey, look at all the good things I did for you. Gave you all the answers to the test. You know, told you which girl was interested in you, that sort of thing. Go, the next thing you know, you're friends. You're friends with a spirit that you don't really know who it is, where it came from. Bad things happen.
it's
I've heard,
it definitely is like a domino effect.
yeah,
Yeah.
and just too many times I've heard reference to that sort of thing happening. It's like, oops. So now you get this little girl running around, just a scared little girl, because on occasion they see her crying,
Yeah.
and it's almost human nature. I've got to help this kid. What do you need? And
Yeah, even though you're out in the middle of the night at 3 in the morning.
mhm. She's been seen at the college. She's been seen at the health department on Cedar Street. She's
Oh
been
wow.
seen out at the arena. She's been seen on the north side of town. There's a hotel near the mall. She's been seen there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's like,
wonder
and
I, I wonder where she's getting rides from. Ghost Uber.
yeah, could be. Uh, Wonder what the real plan is, though. It's like, of course, I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe she just didn't want to go to to the next plane of existence, and she didn't feel like going to heaven. Maybe her concept of heaven was you sit on a cloud and you strum a harp all day. And she was like, "Oh, that's
That sounds
boring."
boring. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe she just decided, I ain't going. Having too much fun running
I
around
mean,
being a troublemaker here in Laredo.
yeah. Maybe she has no energy to go anywhere else, not even across.
Hmm, no telling. Oh, well, no, I haven't heard any
Yeah,
stories out of Nuevo Laredo. That's
that's
surprising.
my other question. Have you ever heard of anything over there recently or
Well, not recently, but a we were doing a book fair at the art place, the old Mercado,
okay.
and just asking people as they go by, I'd ask them if they had a story to tell. And a woman named Blanca came over and she started to tell me a lot of things about a Ouija board, ghosts. It got to a point where finally I just had to tell her, look, I'll send you an email and you just send me the rest, because she was talking for a good hour.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to keep her held up. She had her daughter and her granddaughter with her, and they're both going to everything she's saying.
Yeah.
They started out, they had a Ouija board, her and her sister. And it was one of these deals, just a couple of kids messing around with a game. And they would ask the Ouija board all kinds of questions and it would answer them. And it didn't really like Blanca. It
Okay.
would insult her anytime they asked a question. It was more attracted to the older sister. Well,
Okay.
eventually, this spirit asked if they would go visit her grave at the cemetery. The older sister couldn't go, but Blanca went. She took a cousin of hers with her, and she went into the cemetery, the old one by the railroad tracks.
Yes, sir. I know exactly where
You ever
that
been
is.
there? It's a
Yes, it's
spooky place in the
yeah.
daytime.
Hmm.
Well,
Especially at night.
she went to where the grave marker was, and it was broken. It was a cross with a name on it, but the cross is broken.
Okay.
And she said she got this super eerie feeling because it creeped her out to be standing in front of the grave where somebody she's been communicating with is. She turned and she started making her way back towards the exit, and she walked and she walked and she walked, and she said the more she walked, the farther away the gates to the cemetery became.
Okay.
And she thought she wasn't ever going to escape. It was like she was in another
Oh,
dimension.
yeah. Hmm.
And it took her, I forget how long before she was finally able to get to the gates and get out of there. But she went back and she told her sister what had happened. Her sister, of course, immediately grabs the Ouija board and started talking to this woman. And this creature started threatening them. She was
Oh,
super
wow.
unhappy. She was going to haunt them. She was going to attack them when they were outside. Just finally they decided, okay, we've had enough of this Ouija board entertainment, and they just stopped using it. But that was just one of the many stories that this woman told me, and it was a lot of it not just eerie, but some of it was downright horrifying. Uh, the invisible playmate that a lot of kids have,
Visible.
her
Visible
granddaughter,
friends.
her granddaughter had an invisible friend, and I'm trying to think of her name. Yeah, it's one of those too many things going on, and I'm working on the next show, and I got that
Yeah.
stuck.
It's
So
so cool.
anyway, her invisible friend, she's there in the bathtub. Oh, Yaya.
Yeah,
Yaya
yeah.
was right there in the bathtub with her, or Yaya was sitting on the bed with her. Yaya wanted something to eat, just the usual kid stuff. And the grandmother was putting up with it because a little kid, she'll grow out of it. Well, then her son, the grandmother's son, came into the kitchen and he looked scared about something. She asked him, "What the heck's going on?" And he said, "Yaya's creeping me out." Like, what are you
Okay.
talking about? It's like, yeah, she's standing right next to me when I'm playing video games. It's like, you're
Well,
you're you're talking about the granddaughter? It's like, no, the invisible companion. Well, then the son's friends refused to come to their house anymore because Yaya kept messing with them. They would see a little girl standing outside the house at 2 o'clock in the morning as they're driving by. They'd call and they'd say, "Hey, what's your granddaughter doing outside?" It's like, "She's not outside, she's in bed." It's like, "No, I saw her standing in front of your house, a little girl in a nightgown with long black
yeah.
hair hanging over her face like the girl from The
The
Ring."
ring. Yeah.
Except this girl wasn't all wet. Well, it got to a point where they'd hear noises in the house at night, sometimes in the daytime. Things would get thrown, like little statues sitting on a shelf. That Blanca would be sitting in the living room, and all of a sudden the statue would fly by and hit the wall.
Well,
And there's nobody in the house but her and possibly Yaya. And finally, she told her granddaughter, "Look, tell that invisible friend here to stop hanging around here." Uh, Eventually, she disappeared again, became more invisible. But that was a long, creepy story. I believe it's in Paranormal Laredo.
paranormal Laredo. Okay.
I
Well,
believe so.
definitely check
Uh,
that one out.
I've
Sounds
got
like a
four,
poltergeist.
uh, well, or maybe a demon. It's like, uh, it was a very creepy story.
Yeah, definitely.
Uh,
Oh, I'm sorry, Chris James. Go
no,
for it.
no, it just, you never know. That's how I do my research. I will
Okay.
walk up to a total stranger. I'll
Hmm.
hand them my business card and I'll ask them, "Have you ever seen a ghost?" And most people, neutral answer. But then every once in a while, you get somebody that will tell you an incredible story,
You'll,
and that's
wow,
how I get my books.
you'll definitely get a talker.
Oh yeah, I've had a few.
I'm pretty sure because you have a lot of books. I mean,
Mm.
four so far, right?
Hmm. I'm working on
That's
number 5 right now.
wow, that's impressive, Chris James. Also, another question. What have you been into recently when it comes to any movie, any TV series, or podcasts, other podcasts, or
Oh yes, Trailer Trash Terrors with Vic Hermanson. He's he kind of does like I do. The he'll pick a subject and he'll talk about it, and sometimes it's paranormal, sometimes it's a little something to do with history, something to do with something happened to him in the past, all kinds of interesting subjects. He has all the fancy audio equipment. He has a little girl that comes on the show named Annabelle Lee.
okay,
Annabelle Lee was a poem by
yeah, by Edgar Allan
Edgar
Poe.
Allan Poe. He also has uh, Beelzebubba, a redneck demon,
Demon.
but he's a redneck demon. Beelzebubba, a lot of other weird characters, and he blends all this together. He does a very good show. Let's see, I was on Big Dog's Random Stories, I think last week. I put a link to it on my Facebook account, Strange Things account. But yeah, I've been on quite a few podcasts here the last, well, mostly in October. That's the time
Yeah,
everybody is interested in scary
yes,
things.
it's my favorite month for sure.
I stay interested all year long. I also read a series of books that are just fiction. A thought popped into my head, and I thought, what the heck? I'm going to write this story. And one thing led to another. I've got 10 volumes out now, 10 different
Oh,
books. But the idea, are you familiar with Dean Koontz, the
no,
writer?
no, no, James, but
He
you
was
can talk
on
about it.
Coast to Coast several years ago, and he said, okay, he's written, he's one of those guys. He says, I've got an idea, and the publisher hands him a check for a couple $100,000
Whoa,
just because he's got an idea. Well, Dean Koontz said when he starts writing a book, he has the opening scene in his mind, and that's it. He has
okay.
no idea where the book is going to go. And he said he is just as surprised by the ending as we are. And I thought, wow, that's, coming from that guy, that's something to think about. Well, when I sat down to write the Bag Company, BAG, Bag
Age.
Company, because I had an opening scene in my head, and that was it. The rest was just space. And like I said, now I'm up to 10 issues, 10 volumes, ten books in the series. Uh, I listen to Josh Turner a lot, the Paranormal Roundtable. He's out of Austin, and he gets some. Mostly, he talks about Dogman. That's his thing because he's seen one when he was 14, I think. Uh,
Half man,
Really
half
good.
dog.
It looks like an upright walking canine. You familiar with Linda Godfrey,
Yes.
the Beast of Bray Road stories? She kind of got the whole thing started talking about this, that what the Park Service referred to as werewolf sightings. And at the time, she was a reporter for the Elkhorn Daily newspaper, I think it was. And of course, she's just like, well, this is a good filler. It was in January, I believe she said. And so she wrote this article about some people that saw this werewolf. And when the article came out in the newspaper, the next thing she knew, she started receiving dozens of letters from people that read the story, and they said, hey, I saw it too. She started looking into it, and she wrote, I think, four books now. Well, yeah, I believe 4 books. I had her on Strange Things twice to talk about her books. And I was really planning on making a third show, but unfortunately, she's no longer with us. But she was considered the main source when it came to Dogman encounters. And once she got talking about it, a lot of other people got into it as well. Just it looks, a lot of people mistake it for Bigfoot, but
Oh,
everybody
okay.
that's seen one, they say, oh no, it has a hock. That's how that backwards bent leg, because
Okay.
dogs and cats actually walk on their toes.
Mm-hmm.
And where the leg bends backwards, that's actually the ankle.
Oh,
But
okay.
since it's up in the air, they call it a hock. And I've had two people tell me about a dogman sighting here in Laredo.
Whoa, that's
Uh,
interesting.
One was, I think, out on Mines Road. I'm not going to swear to it. She was up in the morning fixing breakfast for her kids, and it was still dark out. And she looked out towards the tennis courts or basketball court there at a apartment complex, and she said she saw this like smoke or haze, and it was kind of swirling around in a circle. And then all of a sudden, there was this dog man standing in the middle of the basketball court. It walked across the yard right in front of her, just kind of glanced at her as it went by, and
Just
disappeared down the street. She was so
appalled.
amazed. Yeah, she didn't know she should have been scared. She was just like, am I actually seeing that?
Puzzled. Puzzled for sure.
Yeah. It wasn't until after the fact that she got freaked out by it. And the second one was a truck driver was coming down. I think he was coming from San Antonio. He said he was on 35. He turned off at 35, heading towards the right. He's driving on a little two-lane windy road. I can't for the life of me figure out which road he was on. And he said he saw a creature bent over some roadkill, eating it as he's approaching. It was early in the
Hmm.
morning again. And as he got closer, all of a sudden he's like, wait a minute, that doesn't look
That
like any
looked
kind of
odd.
animal. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as he pulled into the oncoming lane to pass it, because it was right on the shoulder, and he didn't want to get too close. And as he went by, he's in an 18-wheeler. This thing stood up and it was looking in the passenger window.
Whoa, it was that tall.
Yeah. And he kept on going. He made it out to Mines Road and went to his warehouse, waited for the sun to come up before he returned to San Antonio. But
Smart.
makes you wonder what people are seeing out there.
Hmm. Definitely is something out there.
Yeah, it makes me wonder. You hear people talk about how they get chased by these things once in a while. They get chased by Bigfoot. They get chased by a werewolf. They get chased by some kind of a creature. Yet they're able to escape so they can tell the tale.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder, is this a flesh and blood entity? Something that would pounce on a person and eat them, which actually happened in the land between the lakes up in Kentucky. Family got eaten by
Oh, wow.
something. The park officials swear it was a bear.
I
Uh,
don't know if there's any
anyway,
bears up there.
well, Kentucky, there are bears. It's just they don't usually break into campers and eat people. But so many people report that they had a sighting. They were terrified. They ran. They managed to outrun a Bigfoot or a werewolf
Whoa.
running through the dark, running down a trail through the woods. Now, any animal that's 7, 8 feet tall should be able to outrun us easily. And yet these people tell that they managed to escape.
It escaped.
And it makes me think perhaps these creatures don't eat. Maybe what they're doing is they are absorbing the fear.
Oh,
That's their
okay.
form of sustenance. And they don't want to catch the person because, well, then they're going to stop being afraid. They're going to be
Afraid,
dead.
yes.
So
That,
they just stay in the background just enough to keep them running, to keep them afraid. And
kind of
that's
like
how they
Jeepers
feed.
Creepers, right?
Yeah, a bit like that.
Wow.
That You'll also find that in Paranormal Laredo.
Another question, Chris James.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What are the top three haunted places in Laredo? And can you tell us, some stories on those top threes?
The top one has got to be that old hospital, the one over there on the one that kids keep breaking into and they shouldn't because it's
Yeah.
private property. The entire building is owned by one man out of Mexico. He paid a lot of money for it. He's trying to sell the place and he doesn't need people breaking in. And so if you get caught inside the hospital,
Yeah.
you're going to go to jail. And the police have been told, if you find somebody in there, take them.
Just take them.
Now,
Yeah.
we have been in there, the LPRS,
Okay.
with the permission of the owner. And we had the police with us when we were there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was the police were training there, and we used it as a training session as well, except what we're training for is a little different from what they're training for. But we've got officers. They're not on duty. They're not wasting taxpayer dollars. This is off duty, but they're with us.
Okay.
And we're in the basement, heading to the morgue, because the morgue is the place to be. There's been a lot of EVPs picked up there, electronic voice phenomena. I keep forgetting a lot of people don't live in the same world I do. To me, I watch like the Ghost Hunters, and they have to explain what an EVP is. It's like, knock it off. I know that already. I don't realize other people don't. So anyway, so we're walking along this hallway in the basement, and Ishmael is walking just a little ahead of me. And he turns towards me. He's wearing glasses that record everything he sees.
Oh,
you can get them at Amazon for about $40.
Oh, nice.
I forget what they're called. It's a pair of glasses. They're ultraviolet, and they record everything you see with a camera right here. They have a 6-hour memory.
Yeah.
He
Nice.
he turned to me to say something because he'd seen something out of the periphery of his vision. And as he's turning towards me, all of a sudden he started coughing and choking, and I looked at him like, "Hey, you're not going to die on me, I hope, because it's a long way to the front door out of this place." He recovers. He manages to get his breath back, and he says he thought he'd seen something. So we take our flashlights and we're looking, and we don't see anything. We go on about our business, and we figured the night was a bust. Nothing happened. We didn't see anything. We didn't hear anything until he took his glasses off and plugged them into the computer.
Whoa.
As he's turning to say something to me, his eyes are pointed straight at a doorway. It was actually the kitchen to the cafeteria. The kitchen is across the hallway from the morgue. Good location. In that doorway is a huge black, almost a human-like shape, except its head was at the door jamb. And as he turns and he's facing this doorway, this black image came out of the door, and that's when he started choking.
Whoa.
Like whatever that thing was affecting his
Went
throat.
straight to his neck.
We must have watched that video like 100 times. Just everybody. There wasn't a word said. We just stand there staring at it like,
wow.
Cow. If he hadn't had those cool glasses on, he would have never caught it. Because
that's true.
He thought it was just, something hanging from the ceiling. We didn't know what it was. I have to emphasize, don't go into Old Mercy. Like the police drive by there all the time. I was talking to an officer a couple of months ago, and he was telling me he was doing that. He was driving around the perimeter of the old hospital, and he saw somebody standing in the window looking out at him.
Okay.
Oh, time to go make an arrest. He swears she looked like a nun. Old style habit. So he went inside, looked around, didn't see anybody, searched that section of the building. Finally, he decided, okay, maybe I'm just seeing things. He goes back and gets in his unit, runs back the video, and on the video, he can see a nun looking out that window where he'd seen her. He's like, okay, that's crazy. He told his girlfriend about this when he got the next time he saw her. She used to work at the hospital. I think she was a nurse there. And she said that she was in the basement. She got into the elevator going up to the top floor where the nuns' quarters used to be. Just as the doors were about to close, a nun stepped into the cab. Now, old style habit.
Well,
And she said as soon as this woman stepped into the cab, it got cold.
mhm.
She realized that this woman, she didn't push any buttons. She just stood there. The doors closed, the cab went up, got to the top floor, I believe it was. The doors opened, the nun stepped out the door. So this woman, like, what's going on here? So she quickly steps out the door, looks around, there's nobody around.
Nothing.
And there's no place that this, when's the last time you saw a nun playing hide
In the
and
middle
seek?
of nowhere, yeah.
Yeah. So there are some things going on in that building that are creepy, but it's not worth the risk of going in there.
Mhm.
Yeah, it will ruin your life. The place to go if a person really wants to have an encounter is Slaughter Park,
Ben? Mhm.
where the soccer fields are, and I think there's
Yes.
baseball fields. I've gotten a whole lot of reports from people that said they were at Slaughter Park day or night. One of them, it was a girl and her boyfriend, and they were standing there. It's one of those, what does every teenage girl do? The selfie. She clicked a picture. It was her and her boyfriend standing side by side. When she looked at the picture, there's a third person standing right beside him, but they could see like halfway through this guy. Another person was walking on the back road where they used to have the Christmas light display, and it leads over to an old apartment building right on the river.
Yeah, the white building.
Yeah.
It's like a white building. Yeah,
She looks up, and there's somebody looking out the window from the second floor. The second floor that isn't there anymore because it fell in.
Oh, wow.
But they're standing there, and she said she could see them like the light was inside the room. There was a light on or something.
Yeah.
The power hasn't been on that building in
No.
a long time.
That's strange.
And it was late at night. So how this person was illuminated, I don't know. But if a person wants a good, scary experience, go to Slaughter Park. It's open. You don't get arrested for walking around there.
Wow. Sounds interesting. I didn't know. I thought it had its hours.
It might have like an 11 o'clock curfew.
Yeah.
But you don't want to be there after that because you got the crazy people running around.
Yeah.
All the homeless might hang out there.
Yeah, no, not ghosts for sure.
No. Another place is the Laredo College, which some parts of it are open to the public. I've had a lot of people tell me that they've seen things at the old cemetery, day and night. A woman was walking on the sidewalk. I guess it's Taylor Street. And she looked up, and the whole cemetery, there were men in uniform standing on either side of the walkway. And she looked at him and thought, what's the army doing? Some kind of a ceremony for the dead soldiers? But there aren't supposed to be any dead soldiers. They shipped them all to San Antonio.
Whoa.
And she looked again, and they were all gone. And that's when she realized that they weren't wearing modern-looking uniforms. They were wearing old style, like the khakis that they had back in the 60s.
Back in the days.
And that little girl that I was talking about earlier, she's been seen all over that college. Day, night, all kinds of weird hours. Mostly by the police because they're the ones driving around looking. Too many people these days. They're driving, they look straight ahead, or sometimes they look down because they're playing with their phone, but they're not really aware of their surroundings. Lauren Coleman, the cryptozoologist, owns a paranormal museum up in Maine. And in the back corner is a Bigfoot. It's about 8 feet tall, covered with hair. It's a artistic rendition of a Bigfoot creature.
Okay.
And a lot of people will walk through his museum and not see it. And
What?
it's not hidden.
It's
They're
like right
just
there.
they're not looking off in the dark corners. So uh Slaughter Park, the LC Laredo College, places that are open to the public. Also, the Freddie Benavides ballpark. That's no ghost sightings as far as I know, but a lot of UFO sightings there. Um,
Where is that located? Close by?
it's off of 83 South. Oh man, I couldn't even tell you which building it's behind anymore. It's been
Okay.
so long since I've been down there, but it's a baseball field where people go and they usually just practice. Once
Hmm.
in a while, they'll have an actual honest to God game there, but uh, quite a few UFO sightings there. If a person is just keeps their eyes open, they're liable to see something.
Right place,
The
right time.
trouble, yeah, the trouble with ghost sightings is you expect them to look like a ghost,
Yeah.
but they might not. My wife and I were at Mercy Hospital going to visit somebody, and I usually take the stairs, but I thought, what the heck, I'm going to take the elevator because my knee hurts. So we stepped around to where the elevators are. You know, you got two on one side of the hall and two on the other side.
Hmm.
As we were walking around the corner, a man in a white shirt, black pants, clean shaven, he had the sleeves rolled up twice on each wrist. He comes from the emergency room and he is in a hurry. He comes around the corner. He doesn't run, but he walks onto the elevator fast and the doors close. So I thought, okay, doctor, maybe he's got a
Hmm.
sick patient upstairs. I'm going to wait a couple seconds for that elevator to go. So I did. I waited maybe 3, 4 seconds, pushed the call button for the next cab, and the same one opens.
Well,
And I looked inside and I thought, there's nobody here. I'm going crazy. I'm seeing things. My wife, who's standing right beside me, said, oh, we're sorry we didn't. And she's
see.
looking around the elevator. So I asked her, describe what you saw. Clean cut, dark hair. The guy was about 5'10", white shirt, sleeves rolled up, dark dress pants, shiny black shoes. Exactly what I'd seen. And yet he didn't look like a ghost. He looked solid. He looked like a real
Like a normal
person
person, yeah.
up until he disappeared.
Wow.
So, uh, Luciano Guajardo used to be the librarian back when the library was on Washington. He used to say, how do you know you've never seen a ghost? Because there could be a ghost standing on a street corner as you drive by. And you see this person standing there, and as your vehicle passes them, they suddenly disappear.
Disappear.
And you don't know that, you don't know how many ghosts you might
Are
be
around.
seeing on a daily basis.
You don't even know it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Too many people will decide, okay, I'm going to make a podcast about ghosts. You're shoehorning yourself into one little spot. There's a lot of things out there besides ghosts that are
Mhm.
very interesting. That's why it's called Strange Things. It's
Things.
anything that's strange,
Mhm.
which tell me something that's not kind of strange. I did a show about cats once because let's face it, cats are very strange
Yeah, really,
creatures.
really strange creatures for sure.
Uh, yeah, someday I just might wake up and realize I don't have a show, but hasn't happened yet. It's been 2016 till now, whatever that, what is that, 7 years?
2016. Yeah, it's been, well, 7 years.
Yikes.
We're almost there, Chris James,
Mm,
for a whole decade.
yikes.
But man, that's really impressive that you've been, just going with this, and just not just the paranormal, but Bigfoot and
Mhm,
aliens and whatever strange thing is out there in the planet, not just locally, but the planet.
mhm. There's an abundance of entities out there that science cannot explain. you can have a choice. I'm going to listen to these scientists that say everybody else is crazy, or I can listen to everybody else. There's a lot more of them than there are scientists.
That's true.
Now, granted, there are some crazy people out there. You just have to pick and choose. It's pretty evident after about 5 minutes of talking to somebody if they have one foot in the air or not. I've pretty much made it my mantra, we don't know.
Yeah.
As long as people are willing to say, we don't know, that means you can try and find out. When you say, oh, I know all about ghosts, or I know all about aliens, you're not willing to learn anymore.
That was our interview with Chris James. After months of listening to his podcast on my way to work, it was an honor to have him on my show. Before we end the show, here's the last story of episode 2. This story is from the Laredo Paranormal Research Society, from Anonymous. My mom and I were driving home to Laredo one rainy night after being in McAllen, Texas, visiting family. We were already passing Rio Bravo when we saw a girl on the side of the road. My mom found it strange since it was about 4:45 a.m. First thing that came to mind was that she probably needed help. My mom had pulled a little ahead to get her phone and called the police. The girl looked very young. She had black hair up in a ponytail, and she was wearing a nightgown. My mom was talking to the police. As I was looking back at the girl, she was just standing there. All of a sudden, the girl ran to the middle of the road and got on her knees. I freaked out and yelled to my mom to look back. My mom was still on the phone with the police describing what we were seeing, and the operator said there was a police near that route, so he will be there shortly. I kept looking at her and noticed she had gotten on her knees and crawled back to the side of the road where we saw her. There was an 18-wheeler coming up, and my mom noticed he braked and flashed the lights. My mom waved them down, and the man parked in front of us. He opened his door, got down, and came to us. My mom had the operator on the phone, and she opened the window just a bit. Right away, he asked if we were okay and if we had seen the girl on the floor. My mom explained what we saw, and he described the exact same thing we saw, which was the girl on the floor. He decided to call the police as well. Within minutes, police arrived, and both my mom and the truck driver explained what they had seen. Cops were tracking the steps on the side of the road. The only thing they saw was a weird drag on the dirt. But the cops said it could have been an animal. One of the officers said he has gotten calls from people over the years claiming to see a girl around the area and then disappearing. That night was unforgettable. I've driven to the small town multiple times, and I always get an eerie feeling. It's also not well lit, so I'm pretty sure the residents that live there have their own stories to tell. If you could relate to this story, or if you've ever seen this small girl, please let us know on our social media pages on Ghoul Radio. So those were the stories I chose for this episode. A special thanks to Chris James for being part of this episode and sharing some strange things. Please go check out his podcast, Strange Things, and pick up his books and some delicious coffee at Organic Man Coffee Truck on McPherson Road. All his links will be posted on this episode's bio. All right, Chris James, wrap it up for us.
If you're not listening to Ghoul Radio, it's not the cool thing to do.